Welcome to Wining and Dining with Jim White. It's the program devoted to introducing you to the people behind the flavors you love. I want to introduce you to someone that I respect, admire, and like, and he's got one of the greatest restaurants anywhere on the planet. Mr. Al Biernat is with us on the show. Al, you're looking good. You got all dressed up for the program. Thank you.
I did.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jim, for having me on your show again. I always appreciate you inviting me back.
It's so good to see. I want to ask you to kind of come in a little bit closer so that our people can not only see you but hear you well as well.
Okay,
Mr.
fantastic.
Biernat. There you go. So Al, I gave you just faint praise. You deserve a whole lot more than that.
Thank you very much.
You've been in this business a couple of weeks now, haven't you?
Well, it's been 46 years.
Wow.
So, and I started way back in my real job in the restaurant business was probably in Aspen in, 73.
You were a bartender in Aspen, right?
Yeah, I was, and I enjoyed it very much. I was an underage bartender, and what happened is I wanted to be a ski bum, and so I had $300 in my pocket, and I had a pair of skis and a one-way ticket to Aspen, and I remember landing and hitchhiking into town, and I stayed at the Alpine Lodge for about 3 months, and they were the nicest people, but they said, ski season's coming. We're giving you cheap housing because it was just the fall, but
yeah,
you're going to have to go find a real job and you're going to have to move out. So I went and I started working at a place called Holland House, and I was actually in the kitchen help, and it was really fun. The man, Jack DePoctor and his wife Annika, they came over from Europe, and he came over in the 40s, and he actually built his own lodge. It took him 12 years to build it, and I worked in the kitchen help, and it was fun because we only got room and board and $50 a month, but we were ski bums, and we skied every day, and we just had a great time.
That is great. Did you know a little place up there in Aspen called the Boomerang Lodge?
I remember the Boomerang for sure.
He was one of the original ski guys in Aspen, too. I can't remember his name, but just a charming gentleman.
Well, back then, in Aspen, it was a serious ski town. Not that it's not a ski town now, but back then.
It's a serious C&B scene town now.
Scene more now. But back then, literally, there were all the people wanting to go up there to be the racers and the people that were into skiing, so much that, like in the fall, they'd actually have at the high school, the Aspen High School, really intense routines for getting in shape for skiing. And we used to have, when I did finally get the job at the Paragon, the one you mentioned, where I was a bartender, and it was in the back where it was an oyster bar, we used to get all the ski racers in, and, like right next door, we had a ski shop. Jean-Paul Jolifier had L'Equipe, and then we had Andre Molitor had Molitors, but all these famous European ski racers would have ski shops there. And in the summer, it was mountain climbing. And it was like technical mountain climbing that was really fun. And, you had the Roaring Fork River coming through there, so you had kayakers. And it was just a great lifestyle. It really was a lot of fun to live in Aspen in the early 70s.
Well, you spend a lot of time in Colorado now, you and your wife, Jeannie.
Yeah, my wife and I, we bought a place in Creede, Colorado. And that's southwest Colorado. And the closest ski resort would be Wolf Creek, which is right now, it gets more snow than any other place in Colorado.
My goodness.
Yeah, and I just love it. It's just about 45 minutes away from our cabin. We have a cabin up there at 10,006, and it's like a hideout. It really is fun because we're so high up that satellite phone only, and it's just beautiful. In the winter, you snowmobile in, and in the summer, you could just drive up to it. But it's really absolutely gorgeous. And then we have a home in town as well, which, when we have guests or other family members coming in, it's a little bit more convenient for them. They don't have to snowmobile up to the cabin to get there every night.
Well, how do you manage? I know you've got so many great people working for you at the restaurants, and we want to get into all of that instead of reminiscing about ski bums and all of that.
Yes.
But how do you get away? Let me ask it this way: do you get away up there as often as you'd like? And are you getting to do that more and more?
I don't do it as much as I would like, but I do get up there quite a bit, and I have unbelievably great people, running the place. So Brad, Fuller, my nephew, he's going to take over. He's director of operations for both restaurants.
He's almost as handsome as you are. So that's the family gene will continue.
Well, you're very kind. I think he's much better looking. But the thing is, it's the next generation, and it's really fantastic because we've hired just some amazing talent. We really have, and that's what's I'm excited about is this whole new generation, because I've hired some fantastic men and women, and they're very talented and they're really good with people. And when you're looking for hiring the right people in the restaurant business, number one thing has to be attitude. I was used to hunt with Herb Kelleher and everything, and I enjoyed that very much, just being around him. But number one thing is attitude. If you get someone that they're real knowledgeable in the industry, but they have a bad attitude or negative attitude, or they're not ambitious, it doesn't really matter. So if you get someone that's excited about the business, and it's everything. You could always teach people things that they don't know, but if you get the right attitude, that's what the customer interaction is so important. And as you know, you really get if you have a server or anybody that doesn't know what they're doing, it can destroy your business. I mean, like in the old days when I worked at the Palm, Wally used to tell me, if you had 10 servers and you had one that just they weren't doing their job properly, well, that's 10% of your customers that are having a bad experience.
And there wasn't any Yelp then.
No, I mean, now you really, it's really critical. And, there's so many great restaurants that it's hard to get and retain really great help, but I'm very thankful that we've been able to do that.
Let me just interject for a minute, because I've been a little presumptuous, thinking that everyone in the world should, but obviously don't, should know Al Bernays. Now, Al Bernays is a fabulous full-service restaurant in Oak Lawn in Dallas, Texas. It's been there for about 21 years now.
20 years.
And
just a little bit over 20.
A little over 20. Yeah, who's quibbling? I mean, that's
yes.
just a few extra steak dinners.
Yes.
But anyway, it has become just a legendary restaurant, and the gold standard, in fact, in terms of service and quality and food. And then recently, within the last year or two, Al has opened sort of a northern outpost of Al Bernays. Talk about that, because that's got not only great bones, a great story, great history, but you've done such an amazing transformation on the new Al Bernays.
Well, thank you. We love the building. It's much larger than the original. It seats 375, and the old one, the original one, would seat about 230. And what that gives us on Spring Valley is a lot more opportunity to have these parties rooms. And we have quite a bit of party rooms, and we book them all the time. That's really tremendous business up there for our party bookings. And one room holds up to 70, and another room holds up to 50, and then we have a board room that holds up to 16. And if you wanted to take the whole second floor, you'd probably have about 90 seats for your party. And the upstairs has its own bar, and it has its own walkout terrace, which has really been real busy, nice weather. It's just phenomenal. But that restaurant, we tried to make it as consistent with the quality and of service and the food of the original. And when people go to the north location, it's Al Bernays North. It's on Spring Valley and the tollway. But when people go up there, they're expecting to get the same as what they're getting at the original. And we're real consistent with that. We're not trying to change the concept up there. We want it to be the same, but we just wanted it to be more of a northern location, because what's happening up in Frisco and Midtown, where we are in Spring Valley, used to be called North Dallas. Now it's Midtown.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, so it's fantastic for us, because we're getting a lot of the businesses around there. Like lunch is phenomenal. And I don't understand why the other restaurant that was there before me never really did lunch. Because...
Well, I was going to say, besides being called North Dallas, that restaurant where you are now was also called something else, which was...
Del Frisco's. Well, when they left, I was very happy that they allowed us to... Well, they didn't allow us. They sold it to someone, and the landlord called and asked if I wanted that location. So I was very excited to get it. I always thought it was a phenomenal location, right off the tollway. I mean, literally, if you're heading on the tollway, you exit on Spring Valley, you're 2 blocks off the tollway. I mean, what a location. Great parking. I mean, we have valet, of course, but the amount of parking spaces we have and the size of the building, and I just think it's fantastic up there.
Now, but you had a few challenges. I mean, because that was a dark, clubby, old-fashioned steakhouse. But boy, Al Bernays North is anything but. It's open, airy, bright, lots of windows. Talk about some of the...
Well, my wife, Jeannie, and my nephew, Brad, they worked with the architect and designer to transform it. And what we did is we wanted a lot of natural light. And the older days, you had the real dark steak houses that were just dinner only, and they were very dark. And now I want to do brunch, and I am, and doing fantastic with it, and lunch. And you need that natural light coming in, and you need to make it real airy and fun and not so dark. And we've been well received, and I'm so happy about that. But we have a real nice big bar, and when you come in the main door and you go to the right, there's a real large bar area. And man, that place stays packed with happy hour. We're getting everybody from all those offices, and we run a happy hour there. And during any kind of, like, if there's a sporting event like the Cowboys playing or something like that, and they're on TV, we run happy hour for the whole night. We don't stop it at 7 o'clock. We just keep it going because you want the energy to keep going and you want people to stay there. But we've been so happy with that location, and I just see only. As the future, in the future, I only see it growing and growing because of the amount of people that are leasing buildings up there, and they're excited because I'm hearing from all my customers that lease around there. They say that it has been affordable, but now the lease prices are going up, but they're still a lot cheaper than Frisco or Uptown. No. So they would said we're in the middle, and so those are my customers, and it's fantastic. And then we're getting a lot of people from Preston Hollow. It's not that long. It's not that long of a drive if you're coming up Inwood from any of that area. So we're capturing the northern crowd, and we're also getting the Preston Hollow group.
You mentioned the Cowboys. Several of them have frequented Al's through the years, and has added quite a bit of cachet to your reputation, to your mystique, if you will. Even Mr. Cowboy cut a few deals there.
Yes, he sure has. Jerry Jones has been very supportive of our restaurant. As a matter of fact, when we were doing really well, but not tremendous, the Super Bowl came along in Dallas. And Jerry Jones decided to invite all his celebrity friends during that Super Bowl to our restaurant. I mean, we were packed. We normally seat, like I said, 230 in that restaurant. And when everybody got on their phones and started saying, like, Cameron Diaz is here, or Adam Sandler, or everybody was there. I mean, it was just packed with celebrities and bodyguards and everything else. But everybody just started hearing about Al Bernays, not only in Dallas, because we were known in Dallas, but I'm talking about People Magazine, I'm talking about Us Magazine, I'm talking about all these publications that people, when they were traveling here from conventions, they heard that was a place to be for celebrities. And, people like to go to places that are, of course, packed out and popular and high energy, and that's what we're all about. Any given night, our staff is so phenomenal because a lot of restaurants, you can handle so much, but when you're packing that thing in and you're doing 2.5 turns, and you have a restaurant that seats 230 people, but you're doing 550 people, it takes a special group of staff to be able to handle something like that. I'm talking not only the kitchen, because the kitchen, I have Miguel Kawich, which is probably one of the best chefs. And I mean, he's low-key in the name, but I'm talking about flavors. He has tremendous flavors, but he can handle it. I mean, when we get hit real hard, he's ready for it. And the servers are trained to do that. As a matter of fact, if we have a night that's kind of backed off a little bit, they will come up to me and say, "What's going on? Why is it a little slower tonight?" They want the energy, and I thrive on that energy.
Well, the thing that always impresses me about your restaurants, Al, is the fact that even though it may be very crowded and you may have that 500 covers coming through every night, it still feels like you're giving personal one-on-one attention to people.
Well, the thing is, a lot of people mention that, but I've really been in town here in Dallas since 84, and I worked at the Palm, which was a great place to work. And remember back when the Palm days and when they first opened, there was a Ruth Chris out by Love Field, but you didn't have the Bobs, or you didn't have, the Pappas brothers or Del Frisco's and all of them. So you captured a great market, and I was able to get to know a lot of the people from that time. And it's funny because people that were back there have moved up, of course, in their life into like some really nice positions, and I was able to know them way back when they were just getting into their professions. So I had a lot of good relationships, like, for example, Troy Aikman. He came to town. He had that terrible season, the first year where they won like one game. And, yeah. And I think the only game they won was against Washington. And Washington was going for a perfect season that year until the Cowboys that one game, but they beat them.
That's why the Redskins love us so.
Yeah, but I'm just saying all this because Troy Aikman, he was able to come in all the time, and you were able to. He still is a gentleman for sure, but back then you were able to have the time to talk to him, get to know him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So people say, well, how do you get to know these people? How do you get to know the mayor? Well, he used to come into Palm, and just was able to talk to him, get to know him a little bit. And now that he's mayor, people say, wow, you seem like you have a good relationship with these people. The longevity and just trying to get to know people. Like I mentioned, Herb was back then, that was '84 when I really got to know Herb Kelleher. And he used to bring all his people into the restaurant all the time. And like just Tom Landry, tonight I have Gil Brandt coming in, and he was selected into the Hall of Fame.
Yay!
And that's all stuff you get to know way back then. So every day you're out there and you're working the floor, you get to know as many people as you can and really work the crowd and try to make sure that everyone's happy. And you just never know where life takes you.
Exactly. Talk a little bit more about the Palm story, because we don't want to let that pass by, because it's a great story and there's some great life lessons in there, and there's some great tips and ideals for young people coming up in the restaurant business to know about. You were in Aspen. You were having fun, swinging, skiing.
Yep.
You heard about this group in Beverly Hills. And
Well, what happened is we had such a bad season for snow in Aspen in 75 going into 76 that really I had to get out of there, because as a bartender back then, I mean, whatever you make, you usually spend that day, and you start fresh the next day. But it was a bad season for snow, so I went to New York. I had a customer, Fred Gooderman. He had two service restaurants in New York, and he said, if you want to come to New York, I'll give you a round-trip ticket. Come work for me. Because he used to sit at my bar all the time in Aspen. We became friends. And he said, if you don't like it, use the other half to, use the round trip ticket to come back to Aspen. So I went there and I spent 6 weeks there. And I worked at a place called Chick's. I believe it was on 79th and 3rd. And I went to the Palm, and I was just so impressed with the Palm. The night I went in there was Jack Nicholson, Warren Beatty, all these celebrities, and I liked the energy. The energy was phenomenal. If you went into the Palm in New York, first of all, the place is packed out at the front and everything, and it's just they line them up at the bar, and then the energy level is so high. And the reason I'm saying all that, in a steakhouse, you don't want to walk into a place that's not popular and it's not crowded, because usually you're not going just for the steak, you're going for the whole atmosphere, And I just love the Palms. And I asked them for a job, and they said, "There's no way. We have family only. We have people waiting forever. Busboys waiting 20 years to become a waiter."
My goodness.
And they told me that. So I said, okay. They said, but we have a new one that just opened in Beverly Hills. And they said, if you want, you could fly out there and you could apply. And when I went out there, I was the guy from Aspen, I wasn't a New Yorker and all this. And you needed to be, because it was, they're all professional people, very, very professional. I was working at a place in Aspen, which was my training ground. So I wasn't at that level yet. So I went in there as a busboy, and they hired me. And I used to go in there all the time in the mornings. And I said to Wally, the owner, and I said, do you mind if I learn how to do all this? He said, yeah, you come in any morning you want. And you could work with the guys in the back. There was a gentleman, Neil, and other people. They said, if you want to learn the business, go back there and learn it. Come every morning, but it's up to you to do it. I'm not going to force you to come in here and do it. And what happened is I learned the whole back of the house on my own, and I was taking some business courses at Woodbury Business School. And then the gentleman that was doing that job, he trained me so well that when they opened the Houston Palm, Wally asked me, he said, do you feel you could do that whole job in the back of the house? I said, yeah, I could do it. He said, well, I'm talking about all the opening orders. I'm talking about the daily orders of the inventories. The third man in the restaurant usually does everything back of the house. You're not like the high-profile guy out front, like the general manager, second manager. Mm-hmm. The third manager is the guy that is the backbone of making sure the food costs are right, everything. And I was that guy, so I learned a lot. And then so Wally said, you're doing such a great job. When I opened Dallas, if you want the opportunity, you could be the general manager. And I was the youngest general manager for the Palm. And I was 29. And I moved up here, and it was a big, big success. And Wally and I, he always used to stay with the new restaurant about 3 years. So I worked with him real closely. He's very knowledgeable. He's one of the best in the business. But by working with someone like that, I was just working away one day at the Palm here in Dallas, and a customer said, "Hey, you need your own restaurant." I said, "Well, okay, I'd love to have one. I don't have that kind of money." And he said, "Well, go find the location. If you find the location, I'll give you the money, and we'll be partners, half and half." I said, "Well, that sounds good." So Joey's was in the process of, I guess they were selling their leasehold improvements, and I went to visit with Tony Vallone, real great
His dad
guy.
in Houston.
Yeah. Sat down with the big guy himself, and he said, "Would you
kiss
be
his ring?"
Well, he didn't believe I had the money because he knew I was just a manager at the Palm. So he said, if you really want to make this deal with me, I have to see some money in escrow. So the gentleman that was my backer, he put the money in escrow, and he said, "Okay, let's make a deal." So that's how we were able to get our original location. But it was just from working hard and getting to know the business and not being afraid to do things that, like counting lobsters every morning. Nobody wants to go in there at 8:30 in the morning and rotate and count the lobsters and put away the meat, because the meat deliveries used to come at 12 o'clock at night. They used to be trucked. And to unload 120 shells, which weigh about 20 to 21 pounds each, you have to weigh each one individually. And I handle the dry aging program. So you have to stack this stuff, and you have to go and rotate it, and you have to do all this. Not everybody wants to do that. But if you want to own your own restaurant, it was the best opportunity to be able to do all that.
That's amazing. What to you, and again, we're talking in terms of people listening who may have some interest in being in the restaurant business. To you, what's the hardest part, or maybe the part that people overlook in getting into the business?
Well, first of all, you have to get as much knowledge ahead of time as possible. And if you don't, you're going to pay for it. If you're opening your own restaurant, you're going to pay for it with a lot of mistakes and costly mistakes. Restaurant business is, you have to do a lot of volume to pay the bills. There's a lot of bills that people don't even realize. So a good restaurateur in a steakhouse, if you could bring 15 to 20% down to the bottom line, you can do that if you're doing large volume. But the cost of break even is real high. Like, my payrolls are astronomical because I pay real well and I have a big staff. But the thing is, by doing volume, you don't have to worry about that. And you always have to remember that you're only as good as your people. So let's say you find someone that's really talented. You better make sure that they are incentivized enough that they're going to want to stay, because people will try to steal them all the time. I mean, they really do. I know people don't believe this, but like just recently, I had some restaurateur that grabbed a few of my guys, and they were taking them out for drinks afterwards and enticing him and doing everything they could. Well, they got a few of them, but the others, of course, were real loyal and stayed. And then the other ones is funny. They wanted to come back, some of them. That, I already rehired other people. But you're only as good as your people. And like I said, I'm so thankful. But we go through a process that a lot of people really can't handle what we demand of them. And I know there's a lot of great operators, like the Pappas family. They're phenomenal operators.
Yes.
And there's a lot of good operators. But to get people like that, they want to work at the same level with their peers, and they want professional. Like, I had one lady that worked for me. She moved to Colorado, and I said, I called up and just say hi to her, and she said the thing she misses the most is working with the level of professionalism that we have in our restaurant. And to get that, there's a lot of peer pressure. Like, even with the servers, with the bus staff, the bus staff better be moving real quickly, or the servers will literally ask them to step aside, and they'll just take over for a while. They won't work with that busser again. But the thing is that you have to be good at what you do, because you only have that opportunity to first impression with someone. You'd better be right on, spot on. And if there's a mistake, you have to just admit to it, whatever it is, and correct it and make good with it. Whatever you have to do to make sure that the customers wants to come back, because they know that you care. The most important thing you can say when you have a mistake of any kind is, "I'm sorry, and we're going to fix this." But you have to admit to it. You can't try to be defensive or something. You have to admit to it and fix it. And that's how you usually win a customer over, is that, everybody expects you to be caring, and especially at that level. Steakhouses, the price per person is very high. And we have a lot of return customers, and we're right on the edge of Highland Park. So we have a very demanding crowd, and it's a neighborhood restaurant, but they're very, very nice people. They just want you to serve the very best. I mean, quality-wise, you have to source out the best.
Indeed. I ask you the hardest part about the restaurant business. To you,
Yeah.
what's the best part for you?
I just love the people. I love the interaction with all the different customers that are coming in, and I like working with my staff. That because when I do work with my staff, we're having a good time. We spend a lot of hours in the business. The steakhouse, any restaurant, you spend a lot of time with it. So I have really great relationships with my staff, and the customers I find so fascinating. That's the thing. If you work at a restaurant and you really attempt to get to know people, you'll meet people from all different kind of walks of life, from all over the world, and you really it's a fun job. I mean, I could not imagine not interacting with the amount of people I do every day. I just think that it would be so boring to be sitting in an office somewhere, and I'm not knocking people that sit in an office, but I couldn't do it. I'd have to be out there meeting people and having fun with people. And when people are going out to eat, they're out for a good time. So you already have something going for you.
Yeah.
So.
Man, that'd be the best office in the world if you were there, Al, as the office manager. I want to work there.
There you go. Well, I just love the business. I love, like I said, but you have to be proud of what you're putting out. And that's like when you ask me, you have to know that your kitchen can back you up. If you take 400 people, 500 people, you better make sure that kitchen can handle it and your staff can handle it. So, like I said, we have meetings all the time. As a matter of fact, after I leave here, I'll be going to a meeting, and we listen to our employees and our managers and see how we can make it better all the time. There's always ways to learn. And when I first opened my restaurant, I was on Oak Lawn. I was real happy that I hired a lot of people from other restaurants that had real talented owners and chefs, because they taught me a whole lot, because I only learned one way of doing things from the Palm. And by hiring people from, let's say, Stephen Piles and other restaurants that came to work for me, they were very well trained, and they taught me a whole lot. So it's always a learning process.
Well, good for you. And so if that young man or young woman comes to you and maybe has been a bartender somewhere and no other restaurant experience, but a lot of desire to learn the restaurant business, you're going to give him or her a chance?
Of course. As a matter of fact, I just promoted a lady into management. She tries always to do the very best she possibly can for everybody. And she has that desire, and she wasn't afraid to work. I mean, she's a very attractive lady, but she's not afraid to work. And customers even noticed that. They said, well, look at this young lady. I mean, she's a very attractive lady, but look how her work ethic is phenomenal. And she's very charming at the table. So, of course, you give someone a chance, but you just don't throw them into it. Like with this young lady, and I hired another lady the same way up at the North restaurant, and very proud of both of them, but they had to go through 60 days of additional intense training to see if they worked out, and they liked it, and I liked them. The reason why is because when you move sometimes people up into a position and they see the intensity of it and the level of where they need to be, you give them 60 days and you put them through this intense training, and hopefully they'll want to stay in that position. And both of them are phenomenal. And that training period is, they start literally following servers. They go into the kitchen, they work the kitchen, they work the bar for a while, the hostess, they go up in the office, they learn the numbers, and they go through a training process. So once you find someone that loves the business, and that's the thing in the restaurant business, you spend so many hours in your restaurant, you have to love it. And if you love it and you find people that love it, those are the people you want to retain.
Good for you, Al. Thank you so much for all that you have given us here in Dallas-Fort Worth, and for raising the bar, raising the standard on the restaurant industry in general.
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do, Jim. I appreciate that.
It's delightful having you with us.
Thank you.
All right. Al Biernat with us. And remember, folks, if anybody asks you what you're making for dinner, tell them reservations at Al Biernat's, of course.